Hello, welcome back to Morsels and Motors. In today's exciting world of Fiesta-ing, I'm going to be replacing the solid fuel line from the tank to the engine. I've never done this before. I'm a bit frightened. Eek. But how bad can it be? Let's have a go. Having a look underneath the car, having removed the fuel tank and seeing how disgusting it was, I think it's also very sensible to replace the solid fuel line because it's in quite a state on the outside, and given the state of the tank on the inside, I'm not completely convinced that the inside of this one would be any better. So first thing I need to do is unclip it. There are these little clips that just need to kind of be unscrewed off. It looks like there is a spring going across there that sort of traps those, so I'll have to unhook that. I think that's the centralizer spring for the gear stick to give it a bit of springing action, so I need to unhook that as well. Well, now would you look at that, all the clips came undone eventually. The last couple needed quite a lot of Bulldog BDX to get them undone, but they did. So the only thing that's now holding that fuel line is that little bit of rubber hose that goes from the fuel pump to the top of the fuel line there. So I'm just going to get a little clip and cut that. Okay, that's it off the car successfully. Next job, which is the harder one really, is to try and match that with some copper pipe. Well, here I am with the tools of my upcoming trade. I've got a pipe bender, I've got some copper wire, and I'm going to try and bend it to shape, and I'm going to use some cable ties to tie it up as I go. I don't know what it's going to be like, but we shall see. Eek. Well, now I am part way through and I'm pretty pleased with my progress. A little kink there that I think I can squash out in a moment, but it seems to be following the shape of the existing one reasonably well, and using the cable ties along the way kind of keeps it all kind of firm and solid. So yeah, reasonably pleased with that. Just need that last little bit. Well, now I'm done. That's it, cable tied to the original old one. It's not perfect, but hopefully it will do. There aren't any sort of kinks in it, just nice gentle bends, so that's not too bad. This end is very slightly shorter. This is the engine bay end than it should be, but I don't think that's an issue. The rubber hose can just be a little bit longer. I think that's because this was my first bend and I didn't quite know where to put it. So that sort of olive there, or whatever you want to call it, the sort of wider part of the original pipe, that isn't a sealing olive, it's simply a locating olive. The rubber goes down to touch it and that's it. So there isn't sort of an olive there to actually seal the petrol. So I'm not particularly concerned. That just sort of, I suppose, when assembling helps sort of the factory workers determine where the rubber should end up. I'm just going to burr that end off with a file, just stop it from being too sharp, and get it on the car. Well, I am rather delighted with that. One end of the fuel line there, nicely supported with that little clip. And underneath the car, it all matches up. It's clipped in and goes all the way to the back and comes out the other end there, ready to pop into the tank, or well, to have the rubber attached to it, which also attaches to the tank. So I'm really pleased with that. Hopefully it'll be fine. It's certainly a billion times better than the rusty old crap that was there before. Fantastic. Next little task then is to have a look and start looking at the braking system of this car. Someone has played with the braking system relatively recently. Well, not played, you know, worked on it. It looks like the front flexes look quite new, as do the calipers. However, I'm going to start on the rears because, well, first of all, the rear of the car's already in the air, and second of all, this drum is very, very stiff, so making the car really difficult to push. So I'm going to take it off and have a look inside and see what needs to be replaced, whether it's everything or just some of it. And the first job in order to do that is just pull back this cotter pin or split pin and pull it out of the hub, and then you've got to take off this kind of cover for the nut and then undo the nut. It's a very odd system for a drum. I've not had to deal with that before. Normally the hub nut kind of stays in place, and you have a little screw somewhere on the drum that you just unscrew and then the drum can just come off. But never mind, we'll have to live with what Ford's designed. Cotter pin and the little cover has been removed to reveal the actual nuts. I need to figure out what size that is and get that off. Isn't it just a special moment when the first socket you pick up out of your toolkit is the right size? It's 24mm. Oh, that was a lot easier than I was expecting. I didn't even need to use really the impact driver. Oh well. Okay, let's get this hub off. It is actually moving. It's much easier to do two-handed. I'm not holding a camera. That's like a hub or something, little bearing. Okay, that's quite fun. It goes on the outside, which is very unusual. Right, all this looks incredibly rusty and old and shitty. So, yeah. Let's replace all of it, shall we? I mean, the wheel cylinder doesn't seem to be leaking, but they've seen better days, I would say. Well, now that my fuel line's in place, I can now crack on with the rest of the fuel system. I can then get the carburetor off the car and give that a rebuild, then replace the fuel pump, fuel hoses, and then put it all back together again. Let's go. Right then, it's carburetor time. It is hiding underneath that air cleaner, so I need to start stripping away bits of the engine first to get at it. Okay, air cleaner. I've just unscrewed this big screw out of the carburetor, and I think this should all just... Oh no, it shouldn't. There's some 10mm there. Need to undo that one, and I think there's another one hiding under there. Oh, actually no, that one's missing. There's a couple either side. I just need to go grab those off. Right, now I've undone those. This should lift off, he says. Come on now. Oh, did he undo the vacuum hoses? Oh, it's always something, isn't it? I need 5 hands to do this. Okay, well, I can't be bothered to get those difficult clips off the bottom of the air cleaner, so I'll just move it out of the way. So that reveals our Ford Motorcraft carburetor, which I need to unhook from all its connections to the car and then lift it out of the car. Well, giving it an initial inspection, this bracket here that kind of holds the choke cable in place is very, very loose, so that can't particularly help the functioning of the choke, I wouldn't have thought. Obviously I'll tighten that up when I fit everything back together again. It does look in a pretty poor state. Inside isn't too bad, there's a bit of dirt in there, but the outside of it looks really skanky. I don't think this has been off the car ever, would you think? I shall disconnect the connections. So you've got this one which goes to the fuel pump. This one is just a breather hose. It's just kind of flaps down there near the gearbox, and that can come with it for now. Got the choke cable, got the accelerator cable, which I think is just a little nubbin or something like that. That's the, I think, idle solenoid, and that is a vacuum hose to the distributor, I would imagine, as for the vacuum advance. Yes, it is. There it is, wiggling. So just need to remove all those. Okay, that's everything disconnected. Fuel line, vacuum hose, idle solenoid, choke, and accelerator cable. So time to undo those 2 bolts. Undone the 2 nuts, holding the carb in place, so now it is loose. So hopefully it should just lift off. Ooh, come on. Yay. And lift out of the car. Okay, that is one Ford carburetor. Just going to stuff a rag into the inlet there so that nothing untoward goes into the engine. I really wish there was a way to communicate on video quite how much the old fuel in this carburetor stinks to high heaven. I've been giving the engine bay a clean. There's quite a lot of oil. It's really dirty on the engine underneath the fuel pump, so I have a feeling that the fuel pump gasket's probably failed because it's really oily underneath that. So that's probably a good thing because it's about to be replaced. Taking off the 2 fuel pump bolts. They're just 13mm bolts. They came out really easily. They were not tight at all. So let's withdraw the fuel pump. if I can. There we go. Right, I shall withdraw this out of the car with 2 hands. Right, that's the fuel pump out. You can definitely see that it was leaking on that gasket there. Having a really good look down where the fuel pump fits, you can kind of see the oil and so that the gasket has kind of failed. But you can also see that there's none of the old gasket still remaining on the block, which is pretty good news. So it means I don't have to scrape it off. Hooray! Just give it a little clean. Okay, I'm just comparing the 2 fuel pumps. It looks like they do look identical, certainly in terms of the plunger. There's 2 gaskets with the new one. They go either side of the spacer. It did not look, I cannot trace any particular evidence that there was ever a gasket fitted on the old one. Weird. Which is probably why it leaked. The spacer itself I thought had the gaskets kind of stuck to it, but I've given it a really good clean and actually it's just the spacer itself. There is no gasket still attached to it. I will fit the gaskets on the spacer and hopefully this time it won't leak. Also, interestingly, I don't think that's the original fuel pump. It's AC, made in England. It's not badged a Ford one, so it may well have been replaced at some stage anyway. Cracking on. Just going to cut some nice new and extremely expensive Coline fuel hose to match up the old fuel hose coming out of the fuel pump. Both of them I will do. That one's obviously been cut, but I'll cut it to the right length, don't worry. Well, bummer. I've bought fuel hose that's too small to fit onto the fittings on this particular car. Really see the bore diameter is quite a bit bigger of the fuel hose that belongs to the car, so I better order some up, hadn't I? How annoying. Whilst I wait for some more very expensive fuel hose to arrive, let's crack on with getting the rocker cover off and rubbing that down and giving it a paint, shall we? Because that will definitely give the engine bay a bit of a lift because it currently looks a bit awful. It looks really easy to get off. It's just 4 quite large Phillips head screws, so I'll whip those off off camera and get that sorted. Well, the rocker cover is off. That gives me the first opportunity to look inside properly this overhead valve engine, and yeah, I mean it looks all right, but it is a bit sludgy up the top here. I'll give it a good clean. There's definitely like some nice clean oil up there, that kind of thing. It's not too bad. I'm not very happy with the condition of the top of that engine, but I'm hoping that I mean it probably hasn't had an oil change in about 15 years, probably more. So I'm going to do a quick oil, not now, but I'm going to do a short oil change on it in the sense that I'll run it on new oil as a flush for, you know, like 150 miles or something like that, and then drain it and replace it with fresh oil and see if that kind of cleans it up a little bit. I have realised, since I am here and I have the top of the engine off, I should probably do the tappets, because the old Kent engine is known to be a super tappety engine, so I may as well check and adjust those whilst I've got the rocker cover off, which is incidentally here just kind of soaking in a bit of degreaser for the moment so I can clean the inside, and I'll scrape the paint off the outside of it and get it repainted. Well, here's my rocker cover gasket. I've given it a really good rub down with sandpaper with a drill attachment, and then I've cuirassed it and I've given it a key everywhere, so it's pretty much ready to give it a little bit of a prime and then paint. Okay, I've given my rocker cover a couple of coats of primer. It has revealed just a couple of little areas like that one there and that little one there that just need to be rubbed down a little bit further. I haven't quite noticed, and then we can carry on. Let's start with the valve clearances. I've had a few practice goes, so I know exactly what I'm doing now. So I'm now going to be looking, so I've done a couple of adjustments. So the next adjustment that I need to do, the one I will show you, is when cylinder 1 is rocking, which means that the exhaust and the inlet kind of one closes, one opens, and that's the same as it being at top dead center where the mark lines up. We then adjust cylinder number 4, which is the closest one to you. So we're almost there where cylinder 1 is at top dead center and rocking. So I just get my spanner in here on the crankshaft. So this one is up, that one is down very slightly. So if I turn the engine back the other way a little bit, you'll just about see that they'll balance about there. And that exactly matches up to the 0 mark on the timing markings, so I'm happy with that. So cylinder 1 is now rocking, which means we need to adjust cylinder 4. So to do the adjustment, it's a different setting on the feeler gauge for exhaust valve and inlet valve, and on this particular engine it's exhaust inlet, exhaust inlet, exhaust inlet, exhaust inlet. So these are the two for cylinder 4. Hopefully you'll be able to see them just about if I move that out of the way. So we've got an exhaust there which needs to be at 0.23, and then we've got inlet there which needs to be at 0.09 or 009. So let's have a look. That's very tight, that exhaust one. I can't get the feeler gauge in, and the inlet extremely tight. So they need to be slightly let out, and to do that I need to get my breaker bar and rotate these adjusting nuts. It says upwards, it says, in order to make it looser, to make the gap bigger over here. So upwards presumably means the opposite, you know, undoing it effectively. So let's have a go. They're really tight, and the adjustments that needed are really minor as well. Still very tight. Do a little more. Okay. Oh, there we go. See, can I get my feeler gauge in? And you're supposed to adjust it until you can put the feeler gauge in, it doesn't nip, apparently. And I'm going to go with, I'm quite happy with that, because that feels good. That's about right, having done some of the others. So the next one, yes, that's super tight. So with using the correct ones, so this is the 009. So give this a bit of a loosening, a bit more. Oh, still very tight, a little bit more. Still tight, come on you. Oh, there we go. That's getting there. I can get it in now, but it's still too tight. So, tiny bit more. Just give this a clean as well. Right, let's see. No, it's still too tight because it's still very grippy. At least I can get it in now. Okay, that's perfect. Goes in, moves about, doesn't nip too much. Perfect, happy with that one. So next I need to rotate the engine another 180 degrees so that I think it should be, yeah, cylinder number 2 should be the one that's rocking. Nearly there, I think. So this exhaust is about to come up, and that inlet I suspect is about to go down. So that's right up that exhaust. Yep, that inlet's about to go down. So I need to get it back up to just that top bit where they're both at the top. I would say it's probably there. If I go any further back, that one's going to start going down. So I would say that is at that cylinder's top. Perfect. Okay, so that means I need to adjust cylinder number 3. Is that right? Yes, it is. Cylinder number 3, which is that one. So I repeat the same process, get my feeler gauge out. This is exhaust, that's inlet. Exhaust, very tight. Inlet, also very tight. So I shall repeat the same procedure, but I won't make you watch it.